The states change in the heart that's present and is open multiple times a day, as we're taught. And so if a person is staunch, and strict and rigid, and this is how things have to be, and this is my way or the highway, that's not healthy, and it's not going to be conducive to health, to growth and good relationships.
Well, that's the antithesis of spirituality, because when you become rigid from a somatic perspective, you go into a sympathetic state, the activation, the fight and flight, which causes your vision to narrow.
Yeah.
Which is the antithesis of spirituality. Spirituality is to be able to pan out and see things. And so the moment you go into some rigidity, you have to realize that now you've lost perspective to some degree. Now, that's not to discount sometimes we need to focus in on things, but we also need to say, even if we disagree with someone outside, coming from a different perspective, what are they speaking to, though? Because what they're speaking to has a truth in it. And if we completely ignore that, it's a detriment. It's like, for example, someone sets up a business. Let's say I was using Doc Martens. I used to wear Doc Martens when I was a kid. And it's the best boot available. And I become so convinced by that. But then as time draws on, other people obviously reflect on the model that I've produced, and they think, and it's naturally, I can bring a better model now. I think I'm going to take the principles that they brought and advance it higher. Now, if I become reactive and say, no, this is the boot, and I refuse to change, then what's going to happen is I'm going to be, my business will collapse, because I'm not willing to pan out and see, well, hang on a minute, I need to see what people's needs are, what people's desires are, and address those based upon the principles of I have. If I just, jump into the trenches and hold, that's always going to, it's not going to bring dividends, and you're actually be left behind. So it's really important that the discussions that are coming out at the moment around these themes is we don't start sitting like uncles in the mosque saying, oh, in the old days it was better. That's coming from a place of frustration and a place of lack of ideas. If we just sit there and bemoan, it's not going to change the circumstances. We have to say, right, this is an issue. How do we address this based on the principles that we have? And when we do that, we always come with a much deeper, profound solution. But we have to sometimes let go of the externals in order to be able to speak to the needs of the people. And we see that the Shiuch did this through it in every time. It's like I only can reflect on Sheikh Al-Adawi from Mustaghanim in Algeria. He wrote theatrical plays on alcoholism. And he recognized that the children now are going to French schools. He brought in chairs and tables into the zawiyas where the children would be educated, because he understood the psychology. And it's really important that that we engage with our teachers and say, these are the issues and we need to address them. We can't just say, well, we're being attacked, this is a terrible thing. Well, what are we going to do about it? And I often say this, is that psychology is like sort of the language of this era, I feel. Just like Hellenistic Greek philosophy was the language that people could relate to. As these different traditions and cultures were coming together, that was the language they could use in order to come to a shared understanding and be able to converse. Today, I feel psychology, and not just when I say psychology, I mean, there's lots of reactions to that word. What's meant by psychology? Are we talking about Freud? Are we speaking about, what are we speaking about? But we're not just talking about psychology, we're talking about neurology. We're speaking about all these different disciplines and sciences, that we bring this into and have that language available so people can actually relate to what we're saying. Because you've all had that experience. Some people read a few personal growth books and say, wow, this is in the Sunnah of our Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. But we had to go outside in order to appreciate what we have. We couldn't see it until we stepped outside. And so we're stepping outside, seeing what's in the current discourse, and reframing it according to our tradition. We need to do that, and ourselves and our teachers have to be brave enough to do that. And so we can provide a language so that we can present our tradition in a way that people can relate to it and meet people where they're at. I mean, that's a principle in our religion, meeting people where they're at.